Welcome to the Fourth and Long Fantasy Football Show with Corey and Justin. Here they are, the Fourth and Long Fantasy Brothers.
Welcome to the Fourth and Long Fantasy Football Show. My name is Corey, and I am here with my actual brother, Justin.
Hi, this is Justin.
Justin, we got another jam-packed show here as we go over the NFC in our car ride to Maine segment. We have MVPs, LVPs, and sleepers coming your way, so let's get to it.
On today's show,
Justin, I'm going to let you start us off here, and let's start with the NFC West. You're going to start things off with the always intriguing Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, so my MVP for the Seattle Seahawks is going to be steady hustling Chris Carson, running back from the Seattle Seahawks. I've got a soft spot, Corey, for Chris Carson. He's a RB1 in my mind that's being drafted as an RB2. Now, yes, there is injury risk, right? But I mean, really, what player is an injury risk every year, right? Every player has that concern tied to them. No one on this depth chart is going to threaten Carson. Steady hustling, man. He's an RB1 this year. My LVP, Tyler Lockett. Now, he is really the definition of volatility at the position. You look at his performance last year, majority of his fantasy points came in 3 games. I don't want that sort of up and down ride. I'm going to let somebody else deal with the headache of owning Tyler Lockett this year. And then my sleeper is actually going to be tight end Gerald Everett, the newcomer here to this offense. Now, Corey, we've seen the tight end position have value in this offense in the past, right? You probably remember me hyping up Will Dissly back last year and the year prior. Coach Pete Carroll is hyping up this young tight end. I think he's got a lot of upside in this offense, and he could potentially be a tight end 1 come season's end.
I always like Gerald Everett, Justin, and I think he can do something in Seattle. If you're looking at a tight end late, he's a great one to have. Now, Justin, let's move forward and talk about his former team, the LA Rams.
Yeah, the Rams, I think, are going to have a pretty exciting offense this year. I think right now they're the second odds-on favorite to end up winning the NFC behind the Tampa Bay Bucks. I'm going to go with the MVP being wide receiver Cooper Kupp. People forget, man, that just 2 seasons ago, he was a top 5 wide receiver. Guy had bad touchdown luck last season. I think he's going to be Stafford's favorite target. I could see a return to wide receiver 1 range for Cooper Kupp this year. My LVP, this is not going to be a popular take, Corey, because I like Cam Akers, but I just have to go with Cam Akers purely based on his ADP and his rank right now. It's just too rich. I mean, it's crazy how a guy that had, yes, really, really incredible production down the road, right? I mean, at the end of the season, playoffs, he was what you want to see out of a potential RB1. And I'd love to own Akers in a dynasty keeper league, but honestly, man, at that price this year, I'm leaning towards drafting other running backs that are going at his range in redraft. And then my sleeper for the Rams, another tight end, right? 2 back-to-back tight end sleepers here for my first 2 teams. I'm going to go with tight end Tyler Higby. Now, again, as I mentioned earlier, I like this whole offense here. And when I'm targeting late round tight ends, I think Tyler Higby has a ton of upside. Everett, the guy we just talked about, is now gone, right, out of this Rams offense. And he's the only mouth to feed at the position in this Rams offense. I think Tyler Higby's in line for a pretty solid showing, and you can get him for almost free right now.
Yeah, Justin, I like that Cam Akers take. He's a talented running back, but he's going so high this year, and that's a risky move. Justin, how about out in Arizona? Talk about the Cardinals.
Yeah, Arizona Cardinals here, another really interesting offense. This whole division, Corey, is just jam-packed with great offenses, and the Cardinals are no exceptions to that rule. I'm going to go with the MVP being Kyler Murray. I think he's got the ability to be the highest scoring fantasy player in 2021, right? Out of all positions, I think he's got that upside. In fact, last year, before he had a shoulder injury, he was the overall QB1, was lighting the fantasy world on fire, scoring touchdowns with his arm, with his legs. He's an RB1 sort of QB1 combo, Corey, in the mold of a Christian McCaffrey at the running back position. It's pretty crazy. My LVP, I'm going to go with wide receiver Christian Kirk. Now, I liked Christian Kirk as a prospect the last couple of years, but too many mouths to feed in this offense. You've got AJ Green coming in now. You've got the rookie Rondell Moore brought in. It just hasn't happened yet for Christian Kirk, and I don't think it's going to happen this year either. And for my sleeper, I'm going to go with the guy I just mentioned, Corey, wide receiver Rondell Moore, the rookie here. One of my favorite rookie wide receivers after the clear top 3 at the position. I like Moore's ability to play more of a Curtis Samuel role in this offense, close to the line of scrimmage, really getting a lot of his yards after catch.
Justin, you comparing Rondell Moore to Curtis Samuel is going to make me feel a little queasy, and we'll talk about that more later. But before we do, let's get to the 49ers.
Yeah, the 49ers are another interesting offense, right? Led by offensive head coach mastermind Shanahan here. I'm going to go with my MVP being tight end George Kittle. He's my tight end too, right behind Travis Kelce right now. And he's just this special talent, right? I mean, there's really not much else to say. He's just a special guy, a special player. He's got tight end one upside here in this offense. My LVP is going to be wide receiver Brandon Ayuk, and this is not going to be a popular take. I understand that, but we have to look at what happened last year, right? He really feasted when both George Kittle and Deebo Samuel were banged up last year. I just don't see the same production this season. He's a good wide receiver, right? And I think he'll be solid, but I think people that are hoping for that sort of wide receiver one production that he was giving you at the end of the season last year, it's just not going to happen with those other mouths in the offense to feed here. And then my sleeper is actually going to be rookie running back Trey Sermon. Corey, could he be the highest scoring rookie running back this year? It could happen. I mean, the stars could align here, Corey, and we could see Trey Sermon be a usable RB2 week in and week out. Really only Raheem Mostert stands in his way. And as we know, right, Mostert just seems to always be hurt. Jeff Wilson Jr. is going to be out for at least the first half of the season, if not longer. He could have a shot a lot earlier than we expect, Corey, to really emerge in this offense.
Yeah, Justin, Trey Sermon was one of the guys who actually ended up on my top 10 list when I talked about top 10 post-draft rookie landing spots. I really like where he ended up in San Francisco, and the track is clearing a bit for him too.
Yeah, it's a great landing spot and a great offense. Corey, another batch of great offenses here. The NFC South, powerhouse sort of teams in here. Why don't we start with the Saints?
Yeah, so let's go with the New Orleans Saints here, and let's talk about the MVP, who I believe is going to be the wide receiver, Michael Thomas. I think we'll look back and regret how low everyone was on Michael Thomas this past offseason. Even in his lower end wide receiver one seasons, he was pretty darn great. The LVP is going to be Taysom Hill. If there's still ambiguity in this quarterback room around drafts, he will be picked, especially in Superflex and 2 quarterback leagues. And I'm saying he should not. My sleeper is going to be Traequan Smith. Now, he's a decent enough downfield threat. Smith might actually even be able to see some value this year, but I will say this, only if Jameis sees enough of the field at quarterback.
Corey, Michael Thomas is coming at a really serious value this year. I've seen some mock drafts where he's going in the 4th round. If I can get Michael Thomas as my wide receiver 2 or maybe even wide receiver 3, I am all about that. Corey, another great offense here, the Tampa Bay Bucks.
Yeah, Justin, and this was an offense in Tampa that really got its wheels underneath it as the season went on. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say that my MVP is going to be probably the offensive weapon that I think is the most talented outside of Tom Brady, and that's Mike Evans. Now, I think very highly, maybe even too highly about Mike Evans, and he is just a dominant wideout. More familiarity with Tom will only enhance what we'll see from him this year. My LVP and my sleeper, it's going to be a tag team take here. My LVP is going to be Leonard Fournette because Bruce Arians already this offseason has been quoted as saying, Leonard Fournette was great for us during the playoffs. Not a bad quote, and that's definitely true. But when asked about the other running back, my sleeper, Ronald Jones, Bruce Arians said, Rojo is one of the best runners I've been around. Those are 2 very, very interesting statements, and I think that Arians is tipping his hand a little bit there.
Corey, you are certainly loyal to Ronald Jones, but I totally get it, man. I like the call. You planted your flag in Rojo this year, and I think a lot of people are going to be happy with that call. Let's move into the Panthers, Corey. Who you got for MVP?
So, Justin, my MVP of the Panthers is going to be Christian McCaffrey. Let's move right on from there. My LVP is actually going to be Robbie Anderson. Now, his hot start from last year has him living in the wide receiver 3 conversation this offseason. That's too high for me, Justin, especially because my sleeper is there, and that's Terrace Marshall Jr. Now, this guy may just be the clear best receiver on this team by the end of the season. That's a bold take, but I think it could be true. I really like what he can do in this offense.
Yeah, Corey, not much to see here, right? Christian McCaffrey is that Panthers offense, like the other calls there. Let's keep moving to the Falcons. Who you got?
So, Justin, my MVP is the guy that this offseason I've been saying I'm in for, and that's Kyle Pitts. I'm one of the fools who's all in with Pitts. He's not a tight end, Justin. He's a wide receiver that will get to call a tight end for fantasy purposes, and that's really, really nice. My LVP, Justin, is going to be Russell Gage. Depth chart watchers really love this guy right now with the departure of Julio Jones. I just can't get on board. That's a hard pass for me. And my sleeper is actually going to be someone who's probably not going to be considered a sleeper by many for the Falcons. It's Mike Davis, actually. Now, I understand this seems odd, but I've always liked Mike Davis, the player. Obviously, his situation helps him here, but this guy's talent and role could see RB1 weeks, and he's currently going as the RB24. That's a value.
Corey, I like your Kyle Pitts take there. For those people that have been playing fantasy football for some time now, think back to Marquise Colston's rookie season. The guy had tight end eligibility in fantasy football, put up about 80 catches, 1,000 yards, almost double-digit touchdowns. I think we could see a lot of the same from Kyle Pitts in his rookie season.
Yeah, Justin, I'm excited for what he can be. Now let's move to the NFC North. Why don't you get things started with the very uncertain, but always very fantasy-friendly Green Bay Packers?
Yeah, I'm going into this list here with the assumption that Aaron Rodgers will play the 2021 season, right, Corey? You and I have been keeping that mindset here. Until we hear otherwise, we're just going to go with the idea that Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers in the 2021 season. And as a result of that, my MVP is going to be no one other than wide receiver Devonte Adams. This guy is the alpha at the wide receiver position, right? He's a near lock for 100 yards and a touchdown every single week. Set it and forget it. My LVP is going to be really any other wideout except for Devonte Adams. I feel like we've been waiting and waiting and waiting for years now, and it seems like no one can really emerge as the second clear wide receiver. We really haven't had one since Randall Cobb back many years ago. No thank you on the other wide receivers in this room. And then my sleeper is going to be running back A.J. Dillon. Now, his upside definitely took a hit, Corey, when Aaron Jones came back, right? People were hoping and praying that Jones would move on to different pastures and A.J. Dillon would be handed the keys. But I think that's a bit of the overreaction there. And I think Dillon will still offer some weekly flex value here and there, and he's dirt cheap right now. Plus, he's one of the best handcuffs thrown in fantasy football.
Justin, maybe I'm diving a little too deep here and I'm falling for it again, but I really like what Amari Rodgers might be able to do in Green Bay this year, but that's just me. Let's move next to the Bears, Justin. MVP, LVP, and sleeper.
My MVP is not going to surprise you, Corey. It's a guy that I really like on the Bears, and it's David Montgomery. He's one of the best values in fantasy football today, right? When you look at Monty last year, he finishes the top 5 running back. Understand, right, that it was a great schedule. The stars really aligned for him to finish strong, but he's ranked all the way in the mid-20s now on some sites, and I just don't get it totally, right? He's one of the most elusive backs in the NFL. He's a broken tackle monster, right? He's been known for that his whole career so far. This offense, as long as Justin Fields is under center, should be better this year, right? I'm not afraid of Damian Williams, right? A 29-year-old running back who hasn't played football in over a year. And Tariq Cohen just isn't good, and he's coming off of a substantial injury, which leads into my LVP, and that's going to be Tariq Cohen. Corey, I'm not confident that we'll see Tariq Cohen be good any longer, right? He's going to get his 5 to 7 touches a game, but I'm staying away from those other running backs outside of David Montgomery. And then my sleeper is actually going to be wide receiver Darnell Mooney. I feel really good about him being the number 2 wide receiver behind Allen Robinson in this offense. He's explosive. He's a good route runner. I see Mooney taking a big step this year and becoming a reliable, maybe wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 option here weekly.
Justin, it is a little nerve-wracking to take anyone outside of the running back in this offense, but I completely understand where you're coming from with the Bears. I like the David Montgomery call. He's definitely become a good value, especially this offseason. I was expecting him to be ranked in the teens. The fact that he's in the 20 makes him a really nice RB2 for teams that are going to wait on running back. Justin, let's move to the Minnesota Vikings now. Who do you got there?
Yeah, my MVP for the Minnesota Vikings is going to be running back Dalvin Cook. Now, he's expensive, right? I get it. He's probably going to be the second guy off draft boards come draft season here, but he's a set it and forget it running back, special talent. Moving on here. My LVP is going to be wide receiver Adam Thielen. Now, again, this is not a popular take. I want people to go back and listen to our bust episode that we had a couple weeks ago on why I think Thielen busts in 2021, right? The teaser, it's a combination of the end of season production we saw from him last year and then the continued emergence and growth of Justin Jefferson. And then my sleeper is actually going to be Irv Smith, the tight end here, right? Kyle Rudolph out of the picture. There's going to be production out of this tight end. And Irv Smith is dirt cheap right now. He has the potential upside, as most of these tight ends in these positions do, to potentially return some tight end 1 weeks. He's a great guy to pair. If you're going to do the 2 tight end sort of strategy and take 2 late round flyers, maybe he emerges.
Yeah, Justin, I like all those takes. I do think that Thielen could potentially keep falling to the point where he becomes a value, though. Let's move on now and let's talk about the last team that we're going to talk about in this division, and that's the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, Corey, this was not a fun team to scout. I'm not going to lie, but I'm going to go with the obvious MVP candidate, I think, here on this offense. That's going to be tight end TJ Hawkinson. He's the only real piece of this Lions team that I want for fantasy this year. I think he could push for 150 targets, honestly, are not out of the realm of possibility. And I like him as a top 5 tight end at the position right now these days. My LVP, and this is, again, not going to be a popular take, but I'm going to go with Deandre Swift. The touchdown pace was crazy last year, right? And there's a new coaching regime in place. And they've talked a lot about the hot hand approach here, and they've actually brought in a really capable backup running back here in Jamal Williams. And Jamal Williams is actually going to be my sleeper for this team. And the reason behind that is because I think that Jamal Williams is going to offer some value, especially in PPR leagues. He's a great pass catcher. I think he'll be in there a little bit more than people who own Deandre Swift and are Deandre Swift truthers really want to see him. I think he could return potentially flex value on a weekly basis for this offense.
Justin, the Detroit Lions do really seem like a hard team to scout, with that new offense, that new coaching staff, that new quarterback really in there. I think it's going to be a wait and see with Detroit because a lot of these guys are risky takes for where they're going.
Yeah, it's very true, Corey, but we know, right? Even the worst offenses in the NFL offer some fantasy upside here and there. So I totally get it. Let's finish up, Corey, with the NFC East. Get us started with the Washington football team.
Yeah, Justin, the Washington football team, a really intriguing fantasy asset this year, maybe too intriguing for a lot of people who are sort of spiking the value with a few guys, but I'm going to assume and believe the hype because it started to look like a good offense at the end of last year. My MVP is going to be Antonio Gibson. I like the talent a little too much to not say that he's going to be my MVP. If I had to place a bet on one or two of the second-year running backs, factoring in their current price to return value, it's this guy and it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire. My LVP is going to be, and I told you this was coming up, Justin, Curtis Samuel. I'm still not convinced this is the sneaky guy to own in Washington. People want him to be a thing, and I don't think he'll ever truly be a thing. Now, if there is a sneaky guy to actually own, I'm going to go with my sleeper here, and that's Antonio Gandy-Golden. Now, if I'm going to take a shot on a sneaky guy, it's going to be him because I'm not expecting too much. But I do think that his name will be used in fantasy circles this year because he came in last year with a little bit of hype, and I think he has some of that post-hype appeal going on.
I like all the calls there. A lot of the news, Corey, that's come out of Washington football team camp so far is that Antonio Gibson's really taking that next step. Looks a lot more natural at the position, right? The converted wide receiver. I think Gibson's got RB1 upside this year. I like the call. Let's keep moving, Corey. New York Giants. Who do you got?
Yeah, so my MVP of the New York Giants is going to be Mr. Kenny Golladay. He is, and I've said it before to you, Justin, he's my Stephon Diggs of this year, where people are weighing situation a little bit too much. I'm saying to everybody, get ready for some fun. Now, if Kenny Golladay is going to be the MVP, the LVP is going to be Darius Slayton. With Kenny G in, Slayton has to be out in my mind. Galladay's role will be Slayton's from last year, turned up quite a few decibels. And my sleeper in this situation is going to be Daniel Jones. Now, I know what I'm saying here, but when injuries and disappointing seasons filter in at the quarterback position, Daniel Jones will be a starting fantasy football quarterback in 12-team leagues.
I like the Kenny Golladay take there, Corey. He does have a bit of a Stephon Diggs vibe to him this year, ranked in the low to mid 20s. Talent's not gone, right? He could be a top 12 wide receiver. I like the take. Let's move into the NFC East Cowboys, Corey. What do you got there?
Yeah, so Justin, the Cowboys battle that I'm going to sort of stake my claim on here is the Amari Cooper versus CeeDee Lamb sort of battle of who's going to be the number one receiver to own in Dallas. I'm going to plant my flag with my MVP on Amari Cooper. I think the days of Cooper being a rough fantasy ride are over from his days when he's with the Raiders. With Dak, he's been about as nice as a wide receiver 1 or high-end wide receiver 2 as you can get. My LVP, speaking of Dak Prescott, is in fact going to be Dak. Now, the fantasy community has become so smart at sniffing out risky running back and wide receiver sample sizes. When a running back or wide receiver has a really good stretch of 4, 5, 6 games, the fantasy community doesn't dive head first. But I guess there's an exception for quarterback here. Oh, well, I just don't think he's going to return that top 5 value. And my sleeper in Dallas is going to be Tony Pollard. Now, my Ezekiel Elliott rank actually bakes in that the Todd Gurley cliff may actually be coming for Zeke. The difference here in Dallas is the Cowboys actually have a pretty nice runner waiting in the wings.
Cowboys will be an interesting team to monitor here as we progress towards the season. They're actually going to be featured on HBO's Hard Knocks, so I'm sure the ADP for a lot of these Cowboys skill players will go up and up, Corey. Let's wrap up the NFC East with one of the more disappointing teams last year and one of the more questionable offenses heading into the 2021 season, the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, Justin. So my Eagles MVP is going to be Dallas Goedert. Now, I think it's finally time to build an offense around the guy who's probably been the most underappreciated tight end in football for 3 years. My LVP is actually going to be Jalen Hurts. I don't want to repeat myself. I'll just say C Prescott, Dak, because it's the same exact argument. And my sleeper here is going to be Kerryon Johnson. Now, I know you're going to like this, Justin, but this isn't a major call for me. I just see a bye-week injury-plagued sleeper appeal here in Kerryon, especially if Miles Sanders is overvalued, as I think he often is.
The Eagles offense will be an interesting offense to monitor as we approach the 2021 season. The Kerryon Johnson sleeper take, Corey, is a special one for me. I've got a place in my heart for Kerryon Johnson. We'll see what happens, man. I love the calls. This was fun, Corey. The NFC I found was a little easier to scout. Seems like there's a lot more fantasy relevant players here in the NFC side. This was a fun series, man. Car ride to Maine officially done.
Yeah, we've named our MVPs, our LVPs, and our sleepers for the entire NFL for the 2021 fantasy football season, and that will do it, ladies and gentlemen. As always, please make sure to check us out wherever you can find podcasts. Also on our YouTube page, please make sure to like and comment and subscribe and anything else you can do to show some support. I'm Corey.
And I'm Justin.
And this has been the Fourth and Long Fantasy Football Show. We'll see you next time.
Royalty-free music courtesy of Ben Sound. The views and opinions expressed on today's episode are that of the Fourth and Long Fantasy Football Show. Remember to like and subscribe.